Welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're joined each and every week by my old partner in the broadcast booth back in our days at Fox, Super Bowl winning head coach Brian Billick, who now, as we introduced him last week, working as an offensive analyst under Herm Edwards at Arizona State University. 40-3, the Sun Devils in the opening game. Coach, took you a little while to get it rolling, but once you got it rolling, you had it rolling.
Yeah, good win. We got a lot of new moving parts, as does everybody, given the portal now in college football. Our quarterback, Emory Jones, played very, very well. You worry about those games because they can kind of get sloppy, and it didn't. The guys stayed focused. We hated to give up the 3. The defense had a shutout, but late in the first half, we fumbled the ball and gave them an opportunity for a field goal. So you hated to do that to the defense. But we step up a division this week. We go into Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. So good game.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, a top 10, top 12 team, and looked like it in week 1 until the fourth quarter. Almost let that thing get away. Let's shift gears, though, to why we have you here to talk about the NFL. Here in Cincinnati, and you know all about the AFC North with your days in the Ravens and the Browns and the Bengals and the Steelers. Week 1, right out of the gate, division game, Cincinnati v. Pittsburgh. Mitchell Trubisky named as the starting quarterback by Mike Tomlin yesterday. Talk a little bit about Trubisky. He was a starter in Chicago, number 2 overall pick, had a decent second year. Things have not gone as well since then, but now back in the starting role. This a good move by Tomlin, you think, Trubisky over Kenny Pickett?
Well, Pickett, they're number 1 overall pick, obviously, and I'm a believer, we've talked about this many times, Tom, that you play those guys early. He's going to be your quarterback. You don't take a pick in number 1 and then him not be the guy. You can understand sometimes the mentality as well. We'll let Trubisky go. And the question is, when does that change happen? Does it happen after a couple bad games? What happens if Trubisky now steps up to form and they're playing pretty good and you keep holding that off? Every snap that Pickett gets in 2022, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be better in 2023. So that change is going to happen. Trubisky is a good, solid player. We've seen what that can be about. He can run around, make some plays. He can make some big plays. He can throw the ball to the other guys a great deal. So this is going to be interesting in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, defensive guy, likes to keep the margins tight, play good defense. If Trubisky starts to turn the ball over a little bit, I think you could see that quick pull and go with Pickett.
As far as week 1, you always hear so much in every walk of life, but especially athletics, about, flipping on that switch. You can't just flip on that switch. But as a head coach, when you used to walk your teams for a decade as a head coach in the NFL through training camp and 2-a-days and preseason games, and now we're down to 3 of those instead of 4. But then all of a sudden, bang, you show up the week before the season opener. Do you see an enormous difference in just straight adrenaline, not from the coaches, but also the players when they show up that week before the first game?
No question. 2 things. One, the veterans, all of a sudden they're energized. They've survived training camp. They've gotten through it. But now it's the real deal. You've cut down to playing weight, so to speak, so you know who your guys are. And the whole tempo of everything picks up. And the veterans, you expect that in the veterans. The hard part is the rookies, they think they know what the NFL's about now. They've been in 3 preseason games. Okay, I know how to, no. You have no idea how that next emotional and physical step up. And that's the thing that you want to prepare the rookies for. It's going to shock them, particularly if you have guys in important roles. But the opener is always great. Everybody's going to the Super Bowl. Everybody's ready to go. You're ready for the opener to happen. It's an exciting time, but it's an anxious time for a coach because it's always about, I got to get that first win. You got to get off to a good start because come Monday or I guess Tuesday of next week, half the league is going to be in panic mode. Half the league is, oh my God, and that's just one game. Yeah, I get that. But the whole mentality in the building, when are we going to get that win? And the other half is ready to make their Super Bowl arrangements. And then the following Tuesday, you got probably another quarter of the league that all of a sudden the world is over. So it's handling those emotional up and downs of these teams.
Now, after you were inducted into the Ring of Honor there with the Baltimore Ravens franchise, you made your home many years after you stopped coaching that team in the greater Baltimore, D.C. area there. So I'm sure you're still very much in tune what's going on with the Ravens. A lot of people feel like they are the best team in the AFC North going into this season. Lamar Jackson's coming back from injury. There was a lot of talk they were going to get his contract done. And this big whopping deal that would put him in that same price range as Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. What are your thoughts about having a player of that magnitude? He's already been a league MVP, might win another one. It might be this year. But the fact that he still doesn't have that contract done, as a head coach, even though you're not negotiating the contract necessarily with his agent, are there things you have to do or don't do with a player in his position now the season is getting ready to start?
Well, some players can handle that. Some can't. The position by nature is one. No, you don't want this going on because now you're just waiting for the shoe drop. There's no question in their commitment to Lamar Jackson. The question is, what is that number going to be? And you just saw Russell Wilson, the mega contract and the guaranteed. It's really all about the guaranteed money. And more we're seeing the quarterbacks getting larger and larger chunks, if not like in the NBA, the entire contract guaranteed. So my guess, and I have no way of knowing, my guess is it's about, okay, how big is the guaranteed money going to be? And you can see from Lamar's standpoint, and it's unique negotiation because his mother is his agent, so that adds a dimension to it. But you could see part of the mentality being, okay, they can franchise me next year. I'll take that franchise tag. What is that, 25, 27 million? Not too bad. And then I'll go to the free agent market and see what that mega contract could be. So, Joe Flacco did that. And ended up on the year they went to the Super Bowl and ended up getting a huge contract for himself. Never really played up to it after that, but he kind of bet on himself that way. And so that could be the case right now. The Ravens want to get it done. But to do it now, if it's not done at the beginning of the season, they, I think, see and recognize this is probably not something we want. We would just want to nip it in the bud and say, okay, no, we're not going to talk about it until the offseason. And if all of a sudden it get done in November, great. No harm, no foul. Hey, we were wrong. We were able to come together. But to set the mentality of, okay, quit asking us because we're not even going to negotiate till the end of the year. You can see them doing that.
One guy who did get a big money contract is Kyler Murray. Much was made about the contract and some of the language in that contract that had specifically to do with the amount of time that he was putting in away from the facility in terms of his preparation. Now, what is accurate, what is not accurate, I don't know. But I think it's safe to say it's a fact that there was language in that contract that at least expressed that concern. Now, the Cardinals have come out, Murray has come out, the head coach has come out, and everybody said, we're all cool. Do you believe all is cool?
No, that was a debacle from step one. It was a huge mistake by the organization, huge mistake by Murray. To even have that in there, you're right. I mean, money talks, right? Follow the money. And they putting that into the contract to that degree. On the aside, look, we have these concerns. We want you to do this. Okay, that's fine. That works. But to have the concern to the degree that you actually put it in the contract, there's no walking that back. That's a big red flashing neon sign that says we're concerned about your leadership ability and your commitment to what you're doing. And you can walk it back all now, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is just what I do. That's all well and good. And if you win, okay, yeah, you blow by it. But if they start to struggle a little bit, things are now it's, well, how much time did you spend this week? And what were you looking at? I mean, it all comes rushing back. I just thought it was it was an embarrassment for the organization. It was an embarrassment for the quarterback.
In Green Bay, everyone knows the greatness, future Hall of Famer, not even any debate about it, Aaron Rodgers. But the best receiver in the game walks out the door in Davante Adams. Very early on in training camp and in the preseason, Aaron Rodgers brings everybody into a room, if you believe what you read, coaches, receivers, everybody, and says, fellas, this is not how it's done, and this is not going to get it done. Guys are running the wrong routes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Another question there. You're the head coach. You've got the franchise player who has walked watch some key pieces, including Adams, walk out the door. Everybody thinks that they're still a Super Bowl team. I got to tell you, Brian, I look at their receivers, and maybe some guys step up that you're not assuming or counting on stepping up. I don't think the Packers are as good as they were a year ago. What are your thoughts?
Well, when you lose the player, the stature of Devontae Adams, you don't just replace that. Except Aaron Rodgers, what do we always say about the great ones? They raise level of play of those around them. And Aaron Rodgers has done that for years at the wide receiver position. He's complained about that forever. And they've kind of gone in and out. The receiving core is not all that bad. You got Alan Lazard and Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb. So he's got some moving pieces there. Are they going to miss Devontae Adams? Absolutely. But Aaron Rodgers has that ability to rise them up. You have to look at the NFC North as well. Minnesota's certainly in transition. Chicago, we'll see if Justin Fields is going to step up and live into that promise. Detroit's the black hole. As we know, everything just kind of disappears once it goes to Detroit, so we'll see how they step up. So clearly in the division, I think they have a chance to – I think they're the best team in the division. Are they going to be, when it comes down to the end with the Rams? I think San Francisco is going to be pretty good. The Cowboys, again, as always, people think, could be pretty good. So this is and you can't Tom Brady in Tampa Bay and everything that's going on in the South. So I think they're going to be there. Are they a great team? Can they grow into it? And what Aaron's telling them, guys, this has got to be better. We got to get into that groove that we know we can be pretty good at. I wouldn't dismiss that as happening, but clearly, you don't lose a Devontae Adams and just go, no problem. We'll just replace him with the next guy.
You mentioned the 49ers. And I find this to be one of the most interesting situations that there is in the NFL going into this season. They made that blockbuster deal to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo's won a lot of games. And you and I have talked a lot about this very topic, going all the way back to when we worked together and in subsequent years, and 10 of them since, about so many people are wrapped up in stats and numbers and quarterback ratings and all these other things. But the bottom line is, for any head coach in any franchise and any quarterback, is, do you win games? Okay? Garoppolo won a ton of games. You just mentioned a short while ago, you don't draft a guy in the first round to have him sit around, and now all of a sudden, after they get to the NFC Championship game last year, a game they easily could have won, by the way. In fact, I would make the argument they should have beaten the Rams in that game and played in the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. But Garoppolo's won a ton of games. Are you surprised they're making the switch just based on that they have a team that has proven they can win games, and now you're putting all of these expectations in the hands of a guy that we don't know if he can do it?
Yeah, we've talked about it many times. One of the hardest things to do is to separate the play of a quarterback from what's going on around him, both good and bad. How much is it is just good team around him, much like you've seen in San Francisco? How much of it is, boy, he just doesn't have the supporting cast, and therefore he's not looking good, and that's not his fault. They made this decision. This wasn't a recent decision. They made this decision when they turned in the card in the first-round pick of Trey Lance. That clock started. And like we just talked about with the Trubisky and the Pickett thing in Pittsburgh, okay, what's the timing of that? Maybe we'll get him a little play the first year and then start him the second year. But they made that decision when they turned in that card on Trey Lance. They now have Trey Lance. They've had a little bit of a sampling of him during last year. They've got an entire training camp. They're wrapping the offense around him. They believe he's the guy. But they turn around and give now a pretty substantial contract to Jimmy Garoppolo for just in case, because we are a good football team. The question becomes, at what point, just like we talked about in Pittsburgh, at what point does that change happen? How bad does Trey Lance have to look? And is Trey Lance now looking over his shoulder with every mistake, every interception? And you get down to the point where, there's only 17 of these games and everyone counts. And so it's not like, in baseball, we'll let this guy go for, 3, 4, 5, a week, a month, and no, okay, we'll send him down to the minors and change gears. That's not how it works here. So that's going to be the interesting part of it. But they made that decision when they took Trey Lance. And you're right about Garoppolo. I hearken back to a conversation I had with Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan's dad, at the league meetings one year. And we were talking. I forget about the quarterback we were talking about, a guy that we had, and he asked me. He said, can he make plays outside the design of the offense? That's what you really need a quarterback that can do that outside a Patrick Mahomes type. Aaron Rodgers makes a lot out of if the particular play call isn't just right. Jimmy Garoppolo has been a really solid quarterback. They've won a lot of games, and he can orchestrate the offense very, very well. Obviously, they had concerns or thought that Trey Lance is a guy that can now deliver them plays outside the design of the offense, not just running around, but coming out of the pocket, making the throws, all those types of things. So they made that decision before. They've made it very clear what Garoppolo is by making that draft choice of Trey Lance. So, yeah, the fact that he's still there, though, it's good if you need him, but the dynamic of the team and the players know. Right now, that would be my question. What are the players saying? Going, boy, I'm glad Garoppolo's not gone because we may need it. Because the players want to win now. The players that are there now, they're not about this developing quarterback. Well, you got to win now, because that affects me and my payday and how I do going forward. Or are they cranked up about Trey Lance and excited about him? So it creates a lot of issues in the locker room, good or bad, that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about, and it pertains to the Bengals. When you were offensive coordinator in Minnesota, you guys broke every record known to man offensively. I mean, you got Chris Carter running around, and you got Randy Moss who just come into the league. You got everything going on. There's so much talk here in Cincinnati about all the weapons, right? And, I mean, they are some serious weapons. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think Tyler Boyd's an outstanding player, and he's their number 3 receiver. You got Mixon in the backfield. They bring in Hayden Hurst to play tight end. Can a team, Brian, as a play caller, because you want everybody to be, quote-unquote, happy, can a team have too many weapons? Is there such a thing?
No, but it does take some orchestration. You have to have the right guys. You're right. It's interesting to me how Cincinnati is kind of under the radar. I mean, this is a team went to the Super Bowl last year. They're going to protect now a healthy Joe Burrow in a division that with Pittsburgh in flux, Cleveland in flux, Baltimore I think is going to be pretty good, but they're in flux there as well. Defensively, of all places, they've got a really good, solid tight end core, but their receiving core, we talk about lack of real substantial guys on the outside. Now they got Lamar Jackson. So I think Cincinnati is the front runner in the AFC North, and it's funny how they've fallen under the radar. But to answer your question directly, that group that we had, that had Chris Carter, that had Randy Moss, had Jake Reed on the outside, it could hand the ball off to Robert Smith or Leroy Horde, Andrew Glover at tight end. That was a selfless group. They understood, hey, and as this week goes on, if I do really good one week, well, then someone else is going to do better, well the next week because they're going to take me away. And they were fine with that. And they recognized that the success of one led to their success, even though it may affect their specific numbers. And that's why that group was so good. They were all in. They were all about the team. And Cincinnati and Joe Burrow obviously is going to be key in holding that together, that Chase and Higgins and Boyd and Hurst, who was, a first-round pick out of Baltimore. I think he's an excellent tight end. Got put into the shadow of Mark Andrews, who was a later pick for them, ended up being, a superstar. So they ended up, him moving on. He's a good football player. So they do have a lot of talent. But they got to take the lead of Joe Burrow, who's now established enough. If you were a young rookie, I'd be worried. But Burrow's got enough stature, enough pelts on the wall to go, calm down, guys. I don't want to hear it. I'm going to get the ball to whoever's open. Y'all get open. We'll turn around and hand it off to Joe Mixon, and you just do the job. You just be there when I need you. They'll orchestrate that okay.
All right. Brian, always appreciate your time, and good luck this weekend against Oklahoma State, and we'll catch up after week one. It's going to be exciting. Time to get it rolling.
We'll do it, man.
All right, buddy. Brian Billick, kind enough to join us. We thank him for his time, as always. But that guy's still so dialed into what's going on, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I just and it's hard for me to shut up, but I mean, how many times all the years I was working with him, and you'd sit in that meeting room the night before a game and start talking about different things and different players and different situations, and he had just written a book. It remind me, some of you who are watching on YouTube sometime, to ask him sometime down the road about Achilles Smith. Because when Achilles Smith was coming out of college, Brian Billick will tell you he thought Achilles Smith was going to be a really good pro. Now, we know what happened. And it's not to take a shot at Achilles Smith in any form or fashion. But it's really interesting, his thoughts when he was back running the Ravens and head coach of the Ravens about Smith and what he was capable of doing coming out of college going into the NFL. All right, still more to come off the bench presented by UDF. Back in a moment.